Hi, I'm Reed. This is Crowland Publishing. This is day 35, 40, whatever it is of quarantine. I think we've all come face to face with our demons by now. So let's talk about exorcisms. This is Lore, which is our series on folklore, mythology, social customs, all the rest of it, and how we can repurpose them for our RPG needs. And today we're going to talk about exorcisms of the devil. Now, exorcism as an actual event is oddly under-discussed in fantasy. There's reasons. I mean, why would you hide in a little girl when you could just appear as a 30-foot tall, two-headed baboon man, lizard demon prince, and stab guys for 1,000,000 years, which is how D&D tends to envision fiends. They're just a different kind of monster. Now, I suspect there's two reasons why D&D have kept away from exorcism as an event in their games. And the first is that in the 80s, Satanic Panic happened, and so demons and devils was something that the company TSR at the time backed the hell away from. They just didn't want to deal with demons and devils and any sort of satanic imagery. And the second is that exorcisms are seen, in the West at least, as the domain of religiously affiliated PCs. This is something that priests do. And in D&D terms, that is clerics and sometimes paladins. Exorcism is church business. But outside of Western Christian tradition, exorcism is a community ritual. It's something for everyone to do, so let's talk really quickly about fiends. Now, in all mythology and all folklore, there is over and over and over again, we see this idea that there are spirits, intelligences, entities who want to tempt us away from the correct moral path. And the word that we use for these as a blanket is demons. And demons are always tempting us ultimately into moving away from righteousness, moving away from morality. And in D&D terms, perhaps this is in fact what separates the, quote, evil monsters, unquote, from the playable races. It's simply that demons have already long ago led them into a life of horror and violence and monstrousness. They are already fallen. And what fiends want is to remake all the playable races as satanic and awful and hopeless and ugly as they are. And one of the tools that they have, one of the best tools that they have, is possession. Possession is an ability that is unique to fiends. It is unique to devils because they want to morally corrupt us more than anything else. So they slip into our bodies because they understand the psychology of mortals. They understand that mortals will unite against any exterior foe, any out-group foe. But our in-group, well, we listen to them. And our in-group, controlled by the fiends, they can whisper, they can change things, they can corrupt. It's far more effective to work from the inside than it is from the outside. They spread darkness and they spread despair. And the longer they are there, the longer they are unchallenged, the more darkness and despair that they can spread. But the world is not necessarily a home to demons, and folklore tells us many, many ways to sense when their unnatural presence is in the world. Be that horrific recurring nightmares, be that the stink of sulfur, be that the horse that sweats in the morning, be that religious symbols rusting, falling, be that hens laying black eggs. There are loads and loads of ways to see when your community is under threat from a demon that do not rely on organized religion and holy people, a professional priest class. And the tools that we have to remove demons from the bodies of our community and from the community as a whole is called exorcisms. And I think that there are a few things that we can look at from around the world, a few rituals, a few customs that are more interesting and more gameable than simply, I need a young priest and an old priest. The power of Christ compels you. Let's start with North Africa, and Egypt specifically, because there's a kind of folk magic, a folk tradition within the religion called Zar. Now, Zar means spirit or demon. Zar might be what happened when the Yoruban religion met Islam in the way that voodoo hits Christianity. Now, Zar is of interest to us because it gives us a very different model to how demons act. There are only 8 specific demons who can possess people, and you can tell by how they make the possessed person act, and you can tell specifically which demon is which by how they dress. If they only wear a loincloth, they are X demon. If they wear a pith helmet or a fez, they are Y demon. Now that's a useful tell for any DM to drop. If you can detect which demon is which by a robe that they wear or a sword that they use, that's an interesting way to drop hints for what the adventure is supposed to be. Now, in Zar, the possessed people do the usual possessed stuff: worship Satan, be mean to kittens. So when you've got that confirmed possession, you go to the local wise people, who are often women in this particular case, and they will take the person, they will separate them from the community, they will begin the ritual of exorcism, and they start with the dark occult ritual of having a party. That's right. What you do is that when you know the exorcism is going to happen, you get everyone in the local community, and you have them in for a big dance party, which can last as long as a few days. And at the end of the party, at the end of the feast, eventually the music swells up and a few dozen people enter into ecstatic trances. And using that sort of energy, that sort of information, the Tsar Witch enters herself into a trance, takes her ritual items like ram's horns, just anything that you find locally, and then you cast out the demon. Job done. Moving to a very different part of the world now, in Java, in Indonesia. Now, before Islam came to that part of the world, there was an unusual form of Hinduism that was strong in the region. And in that form of Hinduism, there was a satanic figure, a dark lord, and his name was Batara Kala, the lord of the Asuras, who are a powerful family or race of evil spirits. They're demons. Asuras are demons. Now, Batara Kala, is not so much a god of evil as he is a god of... He's more malice than, sort of supernatural evil. He's the god of stuff that kills us and hurts us. Time, for example, is his main thing. Aging and dying is because of Batara Kala. Then again, he also wants to eat the sun and the moon, so, not the nicest dude in the world. But the upshot is that Batara Kala is present when you are suffering. Batara Kala is present when you are doing something evil, when you are moved by malice and cruelty. That is Kala. You are possessed ultimately by an Asura. And to get rid of his influence, you perform a ruwatan, a sacred shadow puppet play. I'm terribly sorry if I've said that wrong. Now, unlike Tsar, this is a very, very formal thing. You organize the community. Everyone dresses up in their best. They dress up as if for a feast, because they're going to a feast. You sit down. You arrive there in a musical parade, and if you've never heard the gamelan music of Java, it is amazing. It is strange and interesting, and it's all this high cymbals, and it's beautiful. You should definitely use it for a game. And when the parade gets to the shadow puppet play, the whole community eats first, and then they watch the puppet play. Now, the puppeteers are not priests. It's just that a part of their training is to put on these ritual holy plays. And the shadow puppet will act out a story of good versus evil, of God versus the devil. And ultimately it ends with the demons getting cast out within the play. And what happens is that the demons that are possessing the person cannot be in the presence of this holy ritual, and so they flee. They just can't hack it, they have to run away. You then take the unlucky person, the possessed person, you ritually take them away from the community, you clean them, and then eventually you return them across to Eastern Europe now, and to another semi-hidden folk tradition of magic. Now, the Vlach people are an ethnic group with their own language and their own culture, similar to the Romani. And a lot of sensational stuff is written about the Vlachs because, yes, sometimes they use folk magic and crime. A lot of their gangs do. That's another video. Now, the Vlach sorcerers are respected as learned people. They're smart, they're wise, they're not necessarily holy. Now, as a Vlachov if you're a man, as a Vestica if you're a woman. If you suspect someone is possessed or under the evil eye, you go to a Vlachov or a Vestica. Now, this is the third time. See if you can pick the commonalities in all these exorcisms. The sorcerer will dress in ritual clothes, enter into a ritual trance, and they will confront the possessed person. And they will often get young men to gather around in a circle around the possessed person to sing and help the sorcerer, because the possessed person will scream, swear, spit, attack the sorcerer if they can. And what's happening is that the sorcerer will then ask the young men to sing specific songs which will scare the spirit. They will use garlic, which is a very, very magic herb. That's why it works on vampires. Yep, that's the reason. They will use wormwood. They will use knives to threaten the possessed person. They will bang pots. They will bang drums. They want to scare the evil spirit away. And eventually it will work and the possessed person will be freed of their burden. And then you take that possessed person and you bathe them in a river. And often if the possessed person is a young woman, they will said to have gained great wisdom from the ordeal, and they can even join a specific order of people who have survived the possession, which I think is a great hook for any kind of PC or NPC. So in these three examples, I think that we've seen that you don't need to be a religious figure to be able to deal with demons, and this is not something that's done away from the community. This is something that's done for the community, with the community, by the community. So, adventures. Number 1, you can actually just do it like they do in the movies. Especially if this is your first time. Tie someone to a bed, say some prayers. The trick is that you actually have to give other players, not just the clerics, something to do. So perhaps lesser creatures are breaking in, trying to help the demon, trying to free the possessed person. Or maybe the possessed person is an ogre, or a minotaur, or a giant, so that you really are going to need muscle to help out in case this thing escapes, which I think that it should definitely do. A shadow puppet play must be performed. But While it's going on, your party is dragged into a strange shadow realm where they themselves must act out the battle of good versus evil. I think that'd be a really, really fun one-off adventure where you're all two-dimensional, you're all made of darkness, and you must act out a specific kind of rejection of evil, and that is the only way that darkness and Kala can be defeated. Number 3, it's a Tsar kind of ritual, and your party must gather up the magical materials the Tsar Witch is going to need. You've got to wrangle the community to come to the feast and then come to the dance party. You've got to set the mood for the dance party, and you need to get them into the mood for the trance so that the witch can use that power. And then, of course, something goes terribly, terribly wrong, and I think it would be pretty funny if you made your tough, badass D&D party have to take the part of the band, have to actually do the magical dances themselves, or else the fiend will permanently stay in the body of the poor possessed bugger. Number 4. This is great for a kind of hometown heroes campaign where you know a lot of the NPCs and you've interacted with them a hell of a lot. Your local community is rocked by a series of murders, horrible, horrible murders, and you discover that the person doing them has been possessed, so you exorcise them. Alright, done, taken care of, easy peasy, squeeze the lemon. The only problem is that you've incorrectly performed the exorcism, and now the demon is out there, wounded, dangerous, and it begins to body jump all around the local community. Fantastic kind of paranoid, grim adventure. Number 5. So it's just a possession scenario, but it turns out that it's not a fiend or a demon possessing the person. It's a spirit. It's the ghost of one of the party's old enemies. Now they've been sent down to hell, but time works differently, so they've had a time to become a very, very powerful demon, and they want revenge. And in fact, the possessed person demon says, "I'm summoning powerful enemies to attack you." So your party's got a choice. Do they run? Do they kill the possessed person, which would end the possession immediately? Or do they do the exorcism under a strict time limit, as many, many powerful enemies are closing in on them? So there you have it. 3 different kinds of possessions, 5 different adventure ideas. Bring the devil in. Why don't you do an exorcism in your next game? It's loads of fun. It's very, very dramatic. Get everybody chanting. Get everybody singing. Heaps and heaps of fun. I've done it. You should do it too. I'm Christian. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Why don't you give us a like? Why don't you tell your friends? And why don't you subscribe? See you soon.